Welcome to the More Than Fitness podcast.
Okay, you get cozy, set, sound levels, they're check, camera is check, water, because I'm still sick, is check. Again, I apologize for any inconveniences due to my sickness. Zion the Zebra is motherfucking check. For anybody who doesn't know who Zion the Zebra is, and you just hear me saying this random zebra nonsense every now and again, it's this little knick-knack I've got on my desk. And if you're not watching on YouTube, you would never understand what I'm talking about and probably think I'm a crazy person. However, you should check it out on YouTube and check out Zion because he is amazing. Nonetheless, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Minisode number 14 on the More Than Fitness podcast. And today we have a great question from Josh. Josh, thank you so much for your question. Again, if you want to ask your question, there's going to be a link below in the description. You can fill out the form and I will do my best to answer your question. I also think what I'm going to do is after I get a plethora of questions and I can't just, I can only answer about 2 questions a week. I'm going to do a drunk cast and then I'm just going to go through all of those as well. So if you do ask your question, I promise you I will get to it at some point. However, Josh asks, could you run us through how you maximize your recovery? Tips, tricks, what to do if you're recovering slowly, things to consider, slash change. This is a great question. Thank you, Josh, for asking it. And this could be, again, like an hour-long podcast because there's so many things that I could get into here that I could break off into multiple minisodes. So I'm going to try and keep it tight for us. And I'm going to try and just spit out tons of value as quickly as possible. And so the things that I think you need to focus on with your nutrition, like the big rocks, the things that matter the most, is going to come from, of course, your training. So your training, your nutrition, your sleep, and your stress levels. I'm going to go through each one and how to kind of the key points that you need to focus on with each of them. So whenever it comes to your training, you need to have, in order to maximize your recovery, the best thing to do is make sure that your training plan is smart. Make sure that you're not doing nonsense in the gym. So of course, like I could go into way more depth about what that actually means, but following some type of plan is going to be helpful. Even if the plan is shitty, it's probably going to be helpful that you follow some type of plan. That way, if you need to make adjustments, you already know what you've been doing. So if you're doing some type of crazy program and you just feel that you're sore, even 2 or 3 weeks after getting into the program, that's whenever you know, all right, something needs to change here. So yeah, I think for the most part, for most of you watching, I think 3 to 5 days per week in the gym is going to be a good sweet spot for a lot of you. I know some of you may like to work out more, and that's whenever if you like to work out 6 to 7 times per week, you're going to have to be pretty intelligent about how you structure your training if you want to make sure that each one of those days actually count towards giving you the progress that you want and also managing your fatigue that goes along with those multiple days of training. And as a good rule of thumb, the more that you work out, so 4, 5, 6 times a week, the lower intensity you're going to need to have within each one of those training sessions. Because if you're lifting 4, 5, 6 times a week, it's likely that your volume is going to be very high. So the total amount of work that you do, the amount of weight that you lift total, sets, reps, etc., that's going to be very high. So your volume is going to be very high. So that means your intensity needs to be fairly low, right? Because that's how these things balance out. This is how you manage your fatigue. This is going to be the big one. This is the most important thing that you could focus on. If you're going to the gym 5 or 6 times a week, and you're also going balls to the wall 5 or 6 times a week, and you find that you're not growing that much, it's probably because you're just not recovering. Your fatigue is probably through the roof, and you're probably on the verge of an injury. So that's something that you definitely need to be mindful of. And the less you work out, so if you go to the gym 2 or 3 times a week, you can probably use more intensity, right? Because you're going to have more overall rest just by default, even if you work out very hard within these workouts. So you work out Monday, Wednesday, Friday, for example, you have 4 other rest days in there to help bring that fatigue down. So whenever you only work out 2 to 3 times a week, you can go pretty hard. You can go pretty intense within these workouts. And what I mean by intensity for the most part, and this leads me into the next thing I want to talk about, was going to failure. You guys have probably heard me talk about failure before if you've been following me for some time, but I think people abuse going to failure, and it's more of an ego thing of people just trying to fucking impress their training partner or other people in the gym or their own ego or whatever, but people go to failure way too often. And it's just not necessary. All you're doing is ramping up your fatigue. You might be squeaking out a little bit of short-term results, but in the long term, you're just increasing your risk of injury, and you're also building up way more fatigue on your body as a whole. So my best advice would be to, again, if you're working out 4, 5, 6 times a week, I would stay. To keep this as simple as possible, I would say out of a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being, CT Fletcher, it's still your motherfucking set, like ridiculously hardcore. I would say stay about 7 to 8 out of 10 on that scale. If you can stay 7 to 8 for the majority of your exercises, you're gonna be set. And don't think that you can't make progress by doing a 7 or 8 effort out of 10, because the research simply does not back that up. As long as you're still accumulating volume, you're getting stronger over time, you're doing more work over time, you're making progress in these gym sessions month to month, then you're 100% going to be making progress without going to failure. If you work out 2 to 3 times a week, you can probably take the last set of each exercise to failure. Each one of these days. I think that's probably a safe bet. I would avoid going to failure on things like squats or deadlifts, these very high risk of injury exercises. Going to failure, of course, on squats or deadlifts, your chance of injury is just shoots up drastically. So the risk reward is just astronomically biased towards risk with those. So yeah, I would go to failure on the last exercise or on the last set of most of your exercises if you're working out 2 to 3 times a week. And then if you're working out 4, 5, 6 times a week, I would say the last exercise or the last exercise you do for a particular muscle group then for that day, then you can go to failure on it. But again, it's probably not necessary to make the results that you're looking for. So yeah, I would do those. Again, this is maximizing your recovery. You need to start with your training plan first. And then the next would be taking deloads every 4 to 12 weeks-ish. That's typically what I do with my clients. And a deload is don't overthink it. A deload is simply a week where you back off your training a little bit. You reduce each exercise by a set or 2, and then you also stay away from failure on most exercises. So you would stay at about a 5 or 6 out of 10 on most exercises. You go in, you get some work done, and then you get out. So typically during a deload, you're going to feel better leaving the gym than you do going into the gym. That's how you know that you're probably doing the deload right. And deloads are simply to bring fatigue down. So right as the weeks go on and you train harder and harder and harder, you don't just this fatigue doesn't just dissipate, right? Your body starts to accumulate this fatigue systemically as a whole. And in order to reduce this fatigue, you need to take breaks from your training every once in a while. And so for more advanced people, this may be every 4 weeks or so. And for less advanced people, more beginners and stuff like that, every 12 weeks we'll probably do it. You probably know whenever you need a deload, you're feeling run down, you're not as motivated in the gym. And deloads can be hard, but they are very necessary. Last 2 things I want to talk about with training is cardio and active recovery days. So with cardio is another stressor and something that you have to recover from. So if you're doing tons of cardio and you realize that you're still feeling sore all the time or whatever, it's like that could be a reason why your recovery isn't what it could be. So be careful on the cardio. I would again start off with the minimum effective dose, do as little as you possibly can to keep getting results. And something as simple as walking would be a very low impact, a low fatiguing activity that you could still get in some cardio without bumping up your fatigue. In active recovery days, I think people get ridiculous about these. You still want to make sure that you at least completely rest, stay out of the fucking gym at least once per week. And studies have shown that your injury prevention shoots way up if you at least take one full day out of the gym. You can go for a walk or something like that if you still want to move around, but stay out of the gym for one day. Even going in, doing some moderate intensity cardio, people thinking that they're going to go in and do some arms or calves or forearms, do some foam rolling, do some jump rope or something like that. Like, you need to rest. The better way to recover from your workout is to rest completely. Stop doing shit. You can't add shit and expect for your fatigue to diminish. That's just not how it works. If you're super sore and things like that, like in your legs, for example, I think going for a walk or some very light biking on the machine bike that's going to be totally fine because you're getting some blood flowing, things like that. Maybe some light dynamic stretching, just getting full ranges of motion with the muscles. You're going to be totally fine. However, I don't want you to go on an active recovery day and just use that as your bullshit excuse to go in and have another day at the gym. Like, give yourself some rest. And if that's the case, if you're so eager to get into the gym, you're probably not working out as hard as you think you are on the days prior. So that's definitely something to think about. Real quick, my voice is getting raspy, so I'm going to take a quick sip, and then we're going to get into the nutrition side of things. Okay, so for your nutrition, consuming enough protein each day, so about at least 0.8 grams per pound of body weight that you have is going to be a good rough minimum for a lot of people. Making sure that you have protein at each meal is probably going to satisfy that need, right? So yeah, I think consuming enough protein first and foremost is going to be super important because, again, it helps you recover and builds muscle, et cetera, et cetera. While dieting, making sure that you don't undereat too much and aggressively diet, that's also going to affect your recovery. Food in general, just making sure that you eat as much as you can while you're dieting to still, like, if you can eat 1,700 calories a day and lose body fat at a decent rate, there's no reason to eat 1,400 calories so that you can lose fat faster, because you're also putting yourself at higher risk for muscle loss and for injury in the gym because of food feeds your recovery, right? So sometimes I think people forget that. They think just, I need to be in a calorie deficit, so I'm just going to keep taking away tons of food, and there's no problem with that. But you don't understand the performance side of things. You still want to gain or at least retain the muscle mass that you have while you're dieting down, and it's also just a recovery benefit as well, making sure that you're eating enough food as possible. And whenever you're bulking, it shouldn't be an issue. If you're eating in a calorie surplus, your body is going to have a surplus of food to derive to put towards your recovery. Excuse me. Consuming a bare minimum of 2 servings of fruits and vegetables per day. Again, fruits and vegetables, they're amazing. They've got phytonutrients, micronutrients that help with inflammation, disease prevention, plenty of different things that are good for your body. I don't think I need to tell you guys that eating fruits and veggies is probably conducive to having better recovery for your body as a whole and just your general health. Last 2 things, consuming adequate fluids each day, so enough water each day. And remember, you get water from food as well. So fruits, vegetables, they have water in them. Other foods do as well. However, the best, I don't think you should do a certain 1 gallon a day or some blanket statement on how much fluid you should eat or drink each day. I think instead just go by your natural thirst. Like, if you're thirsty, you should drink, or you're probably already maybe a little bit more dehydrated than you should be if you're dying for water. And then also your urination color, right? So what's your piss look like? If it's pretty clear to moderately yellow, you're for the most part of the day, you're probably in good shape. But if it starts to get more yellow and even brownish, you should definitely do something about that. So use your urinations and your natural thirst patterns throughout the day to dictate, okay, should you be consuming more or less? That's usually a good a good indicator. And lastly, for nutrition, minimizing alcohol and not smoking. It's probably a good idea. Alcohol isn't going to do you any favors whenever it comes to your performance in the gym, or for body composition or general health at all. So, and then of course, no one's encouraging you to go smoke tobacco to get better recovery in the gym. All right, last two things, and I'll do this real quick and wrap this up. But first, I need a sip of water before I die. See, natural thirst patterns. I feel dry in the throat. I drink water. It's as simple as that. Okay. Last two things are sleep and stress, right? Like everybody, you guys know you should fucking sleep more. Like you guys should know that by now. Everybody knows that. I think the bare minimum that you should shoot for each day or each night is going to be about, from what I've seen in the research, and I'm not super well versed in this, but from what I've seen, about 6.5 hours. Anything less than that, you're going to start seeing some detrimental effects to your health, to your muscle, to your fat, to your general well-being. If you can consistently go under that for many days on end, I think that's whenever you're going to start seeing some detriments. This is going to be context dependent. Some people may need less sleep than normal people. However, if you think like, oh, I'm that person, like I only need 4 or 5 hours of sleep per night, it's like you're probably not. You could probably your life could be drastically better if you got 7 or 8 hours of sleep per night. I think 7 is my sweet spot. That's whenever I know that I've gotten enough. That's whenever I feel good. I perform well. And anything after that is going to be a bonus. So yeah, sleep more, take some naps if you can. I've got an article on sleep. If you want to check it out, mattmcleod.org/sleep. I have plenty of tips and tricks on there to help you get better sleep. And so, yeah, you should go read that. I'll put that in the description. And last is stress. Again, if your stress is crazy, it could affect everything. It could affect your sleep. It could affect your hunger. It could affect your gym performance. So managing your stress, getting your shit together, meditating, journaling, writing down to-do lists, deep breathing exercises, yoga, whatever the hell you need to do, get your stress under control so that your recovery can be fully maximized. All right. And I think that just about covers everything. That was rapid fire. That was a lot of shit. I hope you guys liked that. Josh, thank you so much for your question, my man. I really appreciate you asking. Again, if you want to ask your question, there's a link to a Google form in my description. And as always, thank you guys so much for listening and for watching. Until next time.